Hello, this is Miss Kyler, and today I'm talking to you about a short story called A Haunted House, written by Virginia Woolf. And I want to look at it through the lens of feminism. This is a very famous style that is often used, and applying a theory that was very prominent in the 20th century. So first of all, it's important that you have some of the concepts of feminist theory. Okay, so starting out, first, one of the big terms you'll hear used a lot by people who advocate feminist theory is patriarchy. This is the idea that male thought and ideals have structured the establishment and rule this establishment. So everything that is about being in charge or leading or guiding or structuring our society has to do with men. And in this establishment, there's this implied concept that men equal minds and women equal bodies. So men have the ability to think and go onto a higher plane, whereas women are objects. And then the idea of structure. So they believe that structure equals masculine, whereas fluidity, or ability to move and change, is feminine. And there's some key terms. We've already talked about a lot of these this semester, but objectification, oppression, patriarchy, stereotypes, and containment are all very important to feminist theory. So one of the ideas is that most narratives are structured. They follow this sort of masculine, very well-established structure. And so if you've taken English 1302, you've probably read about all of these things that make up the structure. So well-structured plot, consistent point of view, and most narratives have clearly defined protagonists with specific goals and a specific conflict. Someone who practices feminist theory would say that this is the masculine way of structuring a story. So a structured narrative has a well-structured plot. So let's see what that looks like. So a well-structured plot follows this very linear sort of progression. You always start with the status quo. You establish what's going on. Then there's conflict, and all that conflict rises to reach a climax. There's some kind of epiphany at that climax, but then there's following action, and then you have some kind of new status quo. So most stories follow that. Okay? Now, fluid narratives, that's the opposite of a structured narrative. There is really no plot. So you're not looking about what's going to happen or who's going to win out at the end. You're just kind of following it as almost a stream of consciousness sort of thing. So Woolf's Haunted House is fluid. Okay? So it is just like it's moving and changing and reshaping itself as it goes. And it flows, and the whole idea is that the narrator and reader together, not just one person or another person, it's the narrator and reader together are on a journey of self-discovery. So the story changes and moves as it needs to help us getting closer to discovering ourselves. And also together, the reader and narrator discover freedom from structure. So it's kind of like the whole thing is about loosening ourselves from the chains of structure, finding that freedom to move from being just an object to being a feeling, thinking soul that's not confined by any specific container. Okay. Now in structured narratives, back to that, they all have consistent point of view. So if you learned in 1302, the point of view is usually either in first person, and there's a little definition of it, or in third person omniscient, third person limited, or third person objective. So you see in first person, the main character is telling the story and they're part of the story. Third person omniscient point of view, there's some kind of godlike narrator out there that sees into everybody's thoughts and feelings. Third person limited, they're still a little godlike, but they only have access to one person's thoughts or feelings. And third person objective, the narrator is basically like a fly on the wall. They can just see and hear what's going on, but they don't know what anybody's feeling or thinking. So most stories will stick to one of those. But in this story, there's no set point of view in the haunted house. No one specific person is being objectified, becoming the object of anyone's gaze. The story moves from using you to they to I, and it's a way of joining all readers to be a part of the discovery process. It's not just about me. It's not just about you. It's about all of us. Okay, in a structured narrative, there is a clearly defined protagonist with specific goals and a conflict. And you can usually tell who the protagonist of a story is because they're the ones that drive the story. They face a conflict. They have to make a major decision or come to a major realization to overcome the conflict, and whatever happens changes them somehow. So it's all about one person's journey. Here in this story, there's no clearly defined protagonist. This story is about discovery for all people, not simply one fictional hero who demands our attention. So in other words, it's global, not just about the individual. And of course, the theory that men equal minds and women equal bodies. That's whether or not we accept that or believe it, we inherently do play along with this theory because it has been a part of the established order for so long. Even if we're not accepting it consciously, subconsciously, we actually think that way. So Woolf manages to take the concept of someone discovering ghosts in a house and use it as a metaphor for a woman discovering her own mind and soul and spirit and becoming freed from the confines of a mere body. So we see that happening with this house. It's haunted, which is the spirits, right? The ghosts are not confined by structure, so neither is the woman confined by structure. She can think, she can feel, she has a soul. And so at the end, she discovers the light, and it's the light of her own heart and her own soul. It's the end, this enlightenment of who she really is, not what I am, but who I am, and the culmination of the journey inward to discover the soul. So we go from being confined by a house to becoming unconfined and finding that light deep inside. The deepest crevice of the house, or the deepest crevice of the woman's body, is her soul, and to free that soul, let it shine through. Thank you for listening. Hope this has been an enjoyable lecture. Thank you. Bye.